Hi, my name is Ryan Hembree. I own Skip Rock Distillers in Snohomish, Washington. So I'm here at a Hotel RL in Olympia, Washington. So we're just up north about 2 hours. So Red Lion's living stage. We're here to talk about craft distilling. And as owner of Skip Rock, I've been making spirits for, we licensed in 2009. So we started production probably 2010. So that would be 6 years of making spirits with the license and permitted, et cetera. And with that process, you have to jump through the state and federal hoops. We're getting, you're licensed, you're bonded, you're insured, able to prove where all of your money comes from, the background checks, et cetera, as well as even an FDA, federal licensed facility for making high proof alcohol. They want to know where all those potential things can come from. Definitely a little bit more than I expected getting into it. And that was the eye-opening experiences each step along the way in that process. Going back, pre-prohibition, craft distilleries were what you might describe as craft distilleries, or just distilleries in general, were throughout the United States, especially on the East Coast. New York, I've seen numbers in the thousands of them. Definitely, they're just small distilleries. And small still, they might run it a couple times a year, depending on the crop. If they were doing fruit, making apple brandy, apple jack, something like that. They were distilling their corn from the harvest in the fall, put that way in a barrel or some glass jugs, and that was it. But they were a small distillery. And if you were to take that same distillery and put it in today's time frame, they would definitely be a craft distillery, handcrafting that beverage from local ingredients, and definitely taking care in its production. It's changed over time. The prohibition helped wipe out definitely a lot of different styles of spirits, of beer, of wine, and even in cider. So pre-prohibition, the most popular whiskey style in the United States was rye whiskey. That took a long time to come back. Still not the most popular by any means, but it's coming back into becoming a more popular whiskey style. It was a way of preserving the harvest if you're a small farmer. And one of the most popular or most well-known small distilleries, or I guess big distilleries in the United States, was that of George Washington. He was well known for making rye whiskey, I guess some peach brandy, and they made a lot of really good quality of spirits using their raw materials that they grow on site or brought in. So that was kind of a neat, when I was starting Skip Rock, neat to be able to read about a lot of the heritage of small distilleries in the United States, going back to those different colonial days and such. So it was eye-opening in a lot of ways. And in looking at the history of an industry that I was wanting to get into. And you got to like a place that's got a mason jar for their water glass. What was left after Prohibition was, in a lot of ways, the big corporate companies that survived. The big ones were selling medicinal whiskey. The big wineries were selling even the vineyards, compressed raisin cakes, grape cake, cakes, dried grapes that would spontaneously ferment and don't get them near water, kind of a thing. And so a lot of people would make wine at home. So that is how a lot of those bigger companies in the industry were able to survive. And definitely that medicinal whiskey was a key part of that. You start moving forward to the end of last century, 70s, 80s, 90s, where craft beer and wine, those small producers, starting to get a foothold. People were looking for new opportunities of tasting beverages, not just a Pilsner, not just those lighter beers, the big brand American beers. I remember my first Red Hook ESB. We're near Seattle, as one of the bigger craft breweries at the time. That definitely was eye-opening. And now, I mean, here in Olympia, gosh, there's probably a couple dozen breweries, and which is pretty amazing. In my hometown in Snohomish, I think there's about 6 or 7 now, whereas just 2 years ago, I think there was 1 or 2. So we've definitely seen a lot of changes. The craft beer and wine industry, I think, the small batch, I think they really did help pave the way in a lot of ways for spirits. We were, again, licensed in 2009. When I was licensed, I was the 4th distillery in Washington State. In the United States, there was probably only about maybe 600-700. So, fast forward that to now, 2017, there's over 1,200 distilleries in the United States that I know of. Last I heard, in April we had hit over 1,000, and that was something that the American Distilling Institute, those numbers came out. In Washington State, we have about 130 to 140 distilleries, 250 breweries, I believe, and over 900 wineries. What that means really is Washington State, we lead the nation in distilleries. We lead the nation, second in the nation for wineries. Definitely one of the tops up there in breweries, cider, mead, etc. And even in craft, soft drinks. So it's that evolution of taste. It's people looking for more and more opportunities to taste something new, unique. What's local? What's using local ingredients? So we've been fortunate that we've tied in with local farmers, and I think that's part of that taste evolution, if you would. An example would be our spiced apple liqueur. We're using a local John Gold apples from an orchard up in Sultan, Ed's Apples, and we've been working with them for a number of years. Now we source all of our apples with them. We juice them on site. We bring them back to the distillery. We do a slight reduction to them. And over a 8 to 10 month process, we take that raw, that fresh pressed cider and craft it into our spiced apple liqueur. It's 20% alcohol, and we blend in all the flavors and everything to it. And that's just part of the process. And with that time comes the taste, the softness, etc. So it definitely makes it a little bit more unique in that regard and helps the flavor profile develop. In the United States, there is 2 kind of main organizations for craft spirits: American Distilling Institute and the American Craft Spirits Association. American Distilling Institute definitely was one of the first ones on board, and really helped bring to the forefront in a lot of ways the small batch spirit producers. With the head of that, Bill Owens, was part of the craft brewery movement. And so he brought with that understanding of where a new fledgling industry could go and its potential. The American Craft Spirits Association came on board a couple of years ago as a nonprofit, just really that distiller founded, if you would, type organization. So those 2 groups, their goals basically are to help educate the industry, they help educate the public, work on legislation. We host spirit competitions where we're submitting our products into to be judged against each other's and to be held to a high level of standard, and that helps elevate the industry as a whole when we all know our products are going to be judged and called out for the flaws and the good things. So thankfully we've done very well in a lot of competitions. We've, even in some of the other ones, American Beverage Testing Institute, with our rye whiskeys, we got 94, 93 points. So we actually took first and second place in the United States, and that was in 2014. We've gotten gold, silver, bronze for, I believe, pretty much everything that's here has taken those, the gamut there of different medals, different competitions, etc. So we're about, I think tomorrow, sending off another batch to American Distilling Institute for competitions. What is a craft distillery? That's something that's asked a lot. And it's kind of like, asking a brewery, what is a craft brewery? You could have some of these really large craft breweries out there, and everyone's got their answer. Is Red Hook a craft brewery? Is Sam Adams? Is all these different bigger breweries that's definitely started out small and have gotten bigger. For craft spirits, generally a lot of states, a lot of organizations use 100,000 proof gallons of production per year. A proof gallon is 1 gallon of alcohol at 50% measured at 60 degrees. So that's the standard of measurement that our industry uses to figure out, tax. It's for tax measurement. A case with 12 bottles of 750 milliliter vodka or rum, in this case, at 80 proof, is going to be 1.9 proof gallons. So you can kind of see that's a lot of cases of production. Definitely way more than we do at Skip Rock, and definitely a lot more than pretty much anybody else in Washington State. There might be some exceptions. There's more. It's more than a lot of distilleries in other states as well. Most of the production is definitely on the smaller end of things, where your average craft distillery might be doing 2 to 10,000 proof gallons a year. Is probably your more average of those 1,200 distilleries in the United States. Let's say maybe 150 are on the upper scale. 100 of them are going to be your more big brands and their production sites. So one of the things that we like to do and how we define at Skip Rock what our vision is of what craft distilling is again buying that local product. Or if we're not buying local, we're buying direct. We're working with the farmers. We know who's growing it. Case in point here, our Belle Rose rum. Belle Rose, Louisiana, small town where our Louisiana sugarcane is being processed. We bring it up. I've been down to our farmers' fields. I drank rum literally in the field, and got to see where the production happened. Got to meet the folks that are processing the equipment, some of the drivers, the fields that the sugarcane comes from, and to really know that this is coming from family farms, American family farms. And that definitely is something important to us. It's not something that's coming in imported off a ship and molasses, and we're trying to create something new with that. This is taking really top quality turbinado cane sugar and doing a long fermentation process on it and making something unique and for us amazing. On the rums, we've got a light rum. It's aged in white wine barrels. It's got a lot of vanilla and butterscotch notes to it. We also have an amber rum aged in bourbon barrels. This one's 86 proof. It's a little sweeter, definitely more the whiskey lover's rum. I had a mojito earlier today here at the Hotel RL in Olympia. So they've got our rums here. Our apple liqueur, like I said earlier, an example of what a craft distillery can do. It's that partnering with a local farmer, and we're buying his John Gold apples. Thankfully, that's part of why we partnered with them. They have a apple press on their farm, so we juice the apples into 300-gallon totes. We bring those back to the distillery. We heat those up to a high enough heat to start a reduction. We reduce that 10-20%. Can't give specifics, but we add our a little bit of cinnamon sticks, cane sugar, a little bit of vanilla, and we start cooling that back down. We add our alcohol and let that rest. Now, we also have variations of this that we'll be releasing with that's been aged in some of our rye whiskey barrels. That's been aged in some friends of ours, their gin barrels, big gin. So we're excited about that. And we also have aged our Nocino, which is an Italian digestivo. It's a walnut liqueur in those same gin barrels. So different batches. So we're definitely excited about those. And that to me really is the epitome of what a craft distillery is we've got, yes, we have our main products, vodka, rum, whiskey. And then we have our ancillary type products where we get to experiment. We get to have a little bit of fun. We get to do maybe some one-off type products that our customers in our tasting room, our customers that are local, or even that call us up or email us and find out what's available to be able to ship. Because we can do shipping. We have our online website, skipperrockdistillers.com. It'd be bad if I missed saying that. No Chino, to me, this is probably one of the epitome of that craft spirits producer in a lot of ways. It's my favorite product that we make. I've been making No Chino for, I think about 8-9 years. And it started out with finding something to do with the big walnut trees in our backyard. Most people don't pick the walnuts anymore. I've been to Italy, though. I tried No Chino. I remember this weird walnut liqueur that I tried there. So I jumped online and I found some recipes. I started doing a couple different recipes. And over the years, I refined it to what I liked. So now this is prior to going to bottle. This actually was start to finish a full 2 years of aging or process. So this is our 2014. We bottled this No Chino just a couple months ago. So it's a full 2 years of aging in that process. No Chino, being a digestivo, is great for after dinner type drinks. Easy to sip on the rocks. Traditionally, it's slightly chilled. It's also amazing over ice cream. I think for the first 3 years, that's pretty much all I did was pour it over ice cream, vanilla ice cream, like good rich vanilla ice cream. Over the rocks, ice, great in No Chino Manhattan, a Negroni, something like that, a splash of gin. So to me, for us, in our products, this probably has the most sold, if you would, to it. We've been, it's kind of nice. Got some nice write-ups over the years with it. We've done some nice awards. And I've heard definitely we're one of the largest producers in North America for it. It's a niche product, but it's one that we're kind of diving into. We're putting a good amount of product aside because it takes a couple of years for it to come to maturity. And also, it takes time for people to understand what it is. I'd say for the first couple of years, 90-95% of our customer base in our tasting room never heard of it. Definitely now it's one of our top sellers, and that continues to grow. As I mentioned, though, also with the amber rum, being able to compete in a lot of ways, though, with like amber or gold rum is important in the marketplace. We have, using this as an example, we have to be able to create a unique product that helps us stand out, that helps us create an identity of who we are, what we create, how we create it, the quality, etc., and even price point. But it still has to be able to meet a lot of those industry standards. And that's absolutely key. I think a category like gin has a lot of variations for from what traditionally was gin for a long time. That dry gin, London dry gin, if you would. Now there's many different variations, a lot more citrus, a lot less less juniper, more lavender, etc., and different styles. But in a lot of ways, those new gins don't work with the old gin cocktails. So it's up to the distiller. Do they want to craft a spirit that can still be utilized in the old cocktails, the older drinks, or is it something for a whole new set of new creations? And with that new creations comes a lot of education and helping them understand what and why you created what you did. With our amber rum, it still can be used on all your major gold amber type rum cocktails. But at the same time, because it was aged in the bourbon barrels, it definitely is a whiskey up front note and profile. It's a little sweet, definitely sweeter than the light rum, 86 proof, so it's up a little bit. So just kind of using that as an example. Another example is our vodka. I didn't bring a bottle, but we make our vodka from Yukon Gold potatoes. It's a fuller body vodka. We describe it as a creamy, earthy, sweet. We've taken 5 out of 5 stars with Difford's Guide over in the UK, 92 points, Beverage Testing Institute, gold and silver, bronze medals throughout different competitions over the years. So we've put it out there across many different competitions and held steady in keeping those high points and medals. So excited about that, but it's also a different profile. It's not a neutral vodka. It has flavor, has texture, it has its own identity. So some of those different cocktails, maybe that total neutral vodka, it doesn't work necessarily. And it's up to us to help educate the bartenders in the community on that. I definitely love it in Dirty Martini. I was talking to a bartender earlier today, even like a cilantro gimlet or a basil gimlet with it, a cucumber cucumber martini is great. You throw a couple slices of cucumber in there, you shake it, and that potato vodka and the cucumber oils and everything, it just kind of comes together really, really nicely. Another example, and definitely I think where a lot of craft distillers are making their mark, is whiskey. We're able to utilize different grains, different mash bills, different barrel sizes, different barrel treatments, different types of oak than a lot of the big brands. The big brands have been doing it for many, many years. They've definitely honed in what they're doing, their production process, their product, to a T, to science, and they know that exact. We get the benefit of, in a lot of ways, of not necessarily having that history, not having that experience. So we're looking to new ways to make our mark. This is an example. Like I mentioned earlier, though, our rye whiskey, that's definitely our main whiskey. But as an example of something new, I mean, it's something a little unique. Our Distillers Reserve Triticale whiskey. Triticale is a wheat rye hybrid developed in Scotland back in the 1880s, from everything I've read. It was kind of said to be that, the grain that can do anything. It didn't turn out as good, maybe, or it didn't come into favor as much as everyone thought. It's becoming more and more, though, in beer, distilling, and some, health food, and even pet feed. But when it ferments, when we ferment it, it smells like apples and pears. It's delicious. We grow we grow more in Washington State than any other state in the United States, in Othello area, and it's a grain that we've just kind of fell in love with. When it's a white whiskey, we have a little white whiskey that we call Headwaters. It's got this nice brightness to it. It's a little sweet, a little fruit, apple, pear in there still, and then it's just kind of like the sunflower nuttiness to it that we really like. So we sell a lot, like a lot of other distilleries in our tasting room, these small little 1 to 5 liter barrels. We had a customer bring in a sample of that 1 liter aged whiskey. They bought white whiskey, aged that in their home, brought me a sample. I tried it, and I'll be honest, it's like, oh my gosh, why are we not aging this in the bigger barrels? So we did a 30-gallon test barrel a couple years ago. We released that last December 2015. Sold that little 30-gallon barrel, the whiskey in that in a week. We realized we're definitely onto something. Thankfully, before that, earlier in 2015, we put away 2 53-gallon barrels. So just last month, we were able to start harvesting those barrels, those 2 barrels. We had 75 labels from our last printing available. So we released that right before Christmas, sold that out in an hour in our tasting room. That's a great example of what, craft distillery, being able to utilize something local, calling upon its local customer base, bringing them in and offer them something unique, something that the big distilleries aren't going to be able to produce. They're not producing for a variety of different reasons, but it's something that we can do and be able to offer our community as a little bit of a reward to coming into our tasting room. So about this one, we triple distill it. Definitely something unique. Not many whiskeys in the United States or the world or even are triple distilled. Irish whiskeys kind of being the standard, if you would, of being a triple distilled whiskey. It's 100% triticale. Not many whiskeys are 100% one grain bill, and so we wanted to make a stand with this whiskey, if you would. To me, in a lot of ways, it drinks almost like more like a single malt. Not peaty necessarily, but a little smokiness in there, that nut, sweet. It's got a nice softness, though, I think, that it gets from the wheat lineage there. So we're definitely excited about this one. We were able to release just last weekend about 500 bottles. So definitely really small. We are doing more and more of this in the barrels with the ultimate goal of it being part of our full-time regular production lineup and be able to get into more accounts, especially more retail accounts, because if we're going to produce, if we're going to try to go after accounts with this, we need to be able to supply them over the years, and that's definitely a dilemma of a craft distillery, especially one that's producing a multitude of different products. If we're going to go ahead and we get in, say, a big store, Bevmo, Total Wine, Kroger, something like that, with one of our products, we need to be able to supply them. And so we need to be able to have the wherewithal to say, yes, we'll be able to produce X amount of cases a year through the years, being able to make sure we are a constant supplier and be able to also supply the growth for that product, for that the sales outlet, as well as others, and for the rum, whiskey, things like that. So some of the things that I'm looking forward to the most, as far as Skip Rock, craft spirits in general, is that continued evolution. Is as the customer base have looked to craft beer and microbreweries as their go-to. The state of Oregon sells more made in Oregon beer now than any other types of beer. So people are looking for what is local, what is made there, rather than going to the bigger brands. Nothing wrong with the bigger brands by any means, but it offers variation in different opportunities. I think the industry as a whole, we're going to see some consolidation. Those bigger brands are going to be looking for the smaller brands as ways to get into that marketplace. We're going to start seeing whiskey, gin, vodka produced in locations where they never have been in the past. This last summer, I had the opportunity to go to Southeast China and help set up a small craft distillery. I've been working with them for almost 2 years. They bought the exact same equipment that I had. We designed recipes at my distillery in Washington State. We went ahead when we went over to China. We had all the equipment. We put it together, and we got to make the first single malt whiskey. We brought in malt from the United States, from Germany, and Australia to make a 4-grain single malt mash bill. And we had the barrels there, used bourbon barrels from the United States. We had a full container of barrels. So the world is changing, beverage is changing, and with that there's some really, really fun opportunities. An exchange student from mine in high school is now trying to make bourbon in Germany. Corn in Germany, there is kind of looked at as pig's feed, but he's trying to make something new and unique. Just that craft distillery in China that I mentioned is also doing a very large distillery where they're going to be producing a couple million bottles of single malt a year. We had Scottish still makers with us. We planned at the work site, did all the CAD drawings there, and it truly is an amazing facility. So that I get to be a part of. Working with clients in Israel where they're looking at crafting new gins, looking at whiskey opportunities, and finding out what is a craft distillery. And it's something I've had to look at is what is a craft distillery not necessarily in the United States? What is a craft distillery in the Middle East, in Asia, in China? Land of 1.4 billion people, probably more than that. I don't remember anymore. But there's such a change going on in the last 10 years, and those changes seem to keep coming faster and faster. So the distillery in China, they're also going to be looking and working with the local fruit orchards and making different liqueurs, things like that. We make the walnut liqueur, the apple liqueur, we make a raspberry liqueur, we do coffee, as well as, like I said, those different variations of barrel-aged liqueurs. We have a liqueur, fruit-flavored gin, basically like a liqueur, if you would, but it's not too sweet at all. Excuse me. And so that's part of the fun, finding those opportunities. I'm thankful that American Distilling Institute has asked me to help them with a book on liqueurs, be an editor on that project. And so I get to take my up to almost some of it, like 9 years, 10 years of making liqueurs experience, both personal, professionally, and now even internationally, working with international clients, understanding what they might be looking for. The Chinese, what they might be looking for in a liqueur, when the fruit that they're working with, different taste profiles. So liqueurs, whiskeys, vodkas have all changed. And I think that's the beauty of craft spirits is we can craft a rum that has been aged in Chardonnay barrels that becomes a dry rum in a lot of ways. That it's got a ton of vanilla and butterscotch notes to it. Makes some amazing daiquiris and mojitos. On the rocks, it's got soft, texture to it. So it is completely different than the rums that have been out there for years, and what customers, bartenders have worked with. So again, it's just kind of that fun part of it. Personal, professional exploration. It's collaborations with the farmers that we know. Sometimes it's a farmer in Montana that we did a private label, as an example, Spelt and Triticale vodka for a private label. And we're working with the farmer in Montana for that Spelt. Then it's also other brands that have those partnerships with bartenders. Brovo, as an example, craft these really intricate, unique Amaros with bartenders, and they're able to do quite well with them out there in the marketplace because they've got that great relationship with their marketplace to help move that product. And it's, as I said, that continuation of taste, evolution of taste. That's how I've always kind of described it, if you would. And really, so kind of all in that, the opportunities, the variation, that to me is what the craft distillery scene is about. It's about creating an honest product. I feel a craft gin can be made from NGS, or neutral grain spirit that you're bringing in. You're using it as a blank sheet, blank canvas. You're using your botanicals. You're redistilling that, and then you put forward your gin. I definitely, for me personally, describe that as a craft gin. But if somebody is not upfront in where they get that base alcohol, or then that's a different story. Kind of becomes crafty, not craft. And we definitely see that a lot of times with whiskey. There's a lot of small brands that look craft that are just big. The base whiskey, white whiskey, was made in Indiana or something and shipped in. So there really wasn't any hands-on experience in running that still, making those cuts, and creating something unique and different. So to us at Skip Rock, that's what it's about, and it's been a lot of fun. So definitely wherever you're at, please go look for different unique brands, inquire what the bar has, what your favorite restaurant has, what your retailer has. Look for opportunities to drink local, support those small businesses, because that's key. I mean, the small businesses are very, very important, whatever state you're in. If you're Washington, Oregon, Louisiana, California, or Utah, in a couple of weeks, we'll be shipping rye whiskey to Utah, and I think our amber rum. But please check out Skip Rock, what we do, and maybe you might find something that you like that we make. You're also welcome to come out to our tasting room. It's 104 Avenue C in Snohomish, kind of a small antique capital in the Northwest, and we're open Monday through Saturday, 11 to 5. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.